Alrighty. First podcast from the new studio. Very, very exciting. So here I am today. I'm always quite nervous to record solo shows. I don't know why. Just something that has always freaked me out. That's my phone gone off. So I'll just get rid of that. Look, the reason I'm recording this show is due to the fact that Are You OK Day was last week. So it was, it's obviously been and gone, but the situation around Are You OK Day is obviously, for our international listeners, I'm not sure if it's an international thing. It's basically a day where, particularly in Australia, where you would reach out to your friends and family and ask them if they're okay. A lot of people are struggling at the moment. A lot of people not doing particularly well for whatever reason, and that's a real shame. So, in and around Are You OK Day, a week earlier, there was an incident where an Australian football legend, but a very lovable figure in the Australian football community. So we're not talking here about his sporting prowess. We're talking about the fact that he was a legend because he was a guy that put a smile on the faces of all of those around him. His name was Danny Frawley, and it seems as if it's never been officially announced, but Danny Frawley looks to have taken his own life about a week before Are You OK Day, and Danny is one of a number of people that would have taken their own life in and around that time. So obviously, we all know somebody who's been affected in the not so distant past, or in the distant past, or closely through a friend or a family member who has been more affected. So it's not all about Danny Frawley, but it just came at a very poignant time for Danny to take his own life around the Are You OK Day date, when there's a lot of media and resources and conversation going towards mental health, and I particularly get maddened by it. I get absolutely fucking furious when it comes to the state of what's going on in this day and age. I'm not sure if the reporting of the mental health epidemic is because of the fact that we are reporting more. Obviously, for an example here is the fact that my grandfather, he had depression and so forth, and he was medicated for 30 years, and he ended up taking his own life. And yeah, maybe there's a mental health epidemic because of the fact that men and women, but particularly men, are actually reporting the fact that they're not doing so well. Because for my grandfather, for example, he was a business, a leader in business and a leader in sporting clubs and all these kind of this, that, and the other. And for him to step up and say, hey, I'm not doing well, I'm seeing a psychologist, or I've got mental health issues, I've got depression, or whatever it is, he would be looked at as weak back in the day. So that's, 50 years past. So I'm not sure whether the spike in mental health, the spike in mental health issues is because of the reporting or because of the day and age that we live in. I would say, if I had to have a guess, I would say that it's a combination of the both, which is so a combination of the reporting, but also a combination of the fact that we live in a day and age that is a lot different to the day and age that my grandfather grew up in 50 years ago, and a lot different again to 100 years ago, and very, very, very different to 150 years ago. So if you think of 150 years ago, no flight, bugger all cars, no television, radio was the only form of communication, travel was extremely difficult, no internet. So a lot more, times were probably tougher, but people were certainly closer, I believe. So So this is the reason that I wanted to record this show. This show is actually the show that I'm recording now is a show that will go hand in hand with a show that I recorded about a year ago around the book Lost Connections by Johann Hari. I actually recorded a show talking about the 7 lost connections that Johann he highlights in his book. And those 7 connections, I spoke about why they're affecting us negatively in this day and age. And at the time, whenever I recorded a year ago, I said that I would record a sister episode that would be, how do we actually go and put positive spins on all of these 7 issues? How do we come out of this particular position that we're in, and how do we go into the future and grow and everybody's much happier and much more well aligned, and how do we get out of this predicament that we're in? So this is supposed to be the positive spin on Johann's book. So what I'm going to do is we will have released the previous show right before we release this one. So we're going to do the obviously it would already be out now if you're listening to this. I'm going to do the recap show of the original episode, and then this is my my thoughts really around how we can improve the general wellness of the world, particularly the Western world. I'm not saying I don't want to, talk about the rest of the world, but I know very much how life in Australia is. I know very much how life in America is. I feel like I know very much how life in the UK is, and so it's what's closest to me and what I think is easiest for me to relate to. So if you haven't read Lost Connections, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. If I was to pick, it's not my favourite book of all time. My favourite books would be Shantaram would probably be my number one. That's the only book that's made me cry still to this day. That is a fantastic read, an absolute ripping read. So Shantaram would be my number one. Sapiens is right up there. Obviously, if you want fiction, then there's A Song of Ice and Fire I really love. There's a number of other books that I like around that kind of, But as far as books that I think people should read, not because it's my favourite book, but because of the level of importance, there's 2 books that I would put far and away, hands down, above the rest. And they are How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. So Dale Carnegie was a business leader in the 1900s, and in the early 1900s, he wrote a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it's basically like a day-to-day field guide of how to be a good person. It really is that. It is how to win people over. How to win friends and influence people sounds very much like you're trying to do something that's a little shady. How do I trick people into liking me? That's how it reads to me. Maybe it doesn't read like that to others, but that's how it sounds. But the book is just an absolute, it's a full godsend. I remember I read it. When I was working for my dad doing some construction stuff. I was doing this big roof. Imagine a house in where it was. It was in Sorrento, really nice part of the world where I grew up. Really lots of people that are quite well off down there. It was a massive house, and I was left to put this roof on by myself, and I was stoked. I was like, "Yep, this is awesome." So I just plugged a headphone in, and I just went about spending the next few days chipping away, working away, and listening to podcasts and audiobooks. I love nothing more than to be doing whatever I'm doing and to have a headphone in, because I feel like I'm always learning, and I feel like that's a great position to be in, and it's a superpower to always be reading and always be learning. I really think that. Just a way to forever be bettering yourself. But How to Win Friends and Influence People had the biggest impact on me, that I promised myself, and I haven't followed through with this promise, but I promised myself that I'd read it every 6 months just to ground myself and remind myself on how to positively impact everyone around me, like the littlest things. looking someone in the eyes, listening when they talk to you, asking more questions than statements you make about yourself or about your thoughts. Being inquisitive, really caring about people, just the smallest things, remembering people's names. I'm terrible. I have a shit memory. And I've spoken about this before on the podcast at some point, but I write people's names in my phone. If I roll into a new community, so if I go to a gym and there's 200 people for me to meet, I'm like, fuck, this is going to be fucking hard work. So what I do is I introduce myself to somebody and then I make a note about that person. Mark, skinny, funny pom bloke. Sarah, funny redheaded girl, likes podcasts. Clint, crazy cat lover dude, bit of a weirdo, but nice guy, like that kind of stuff. And anyway, so I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but How to Win Friends and Influence People is the first book I would recommend to people to read to improve their life in general. I think it's the most important book written in the 20th century. Not that I've read them all. Said that before as well on the podcast. But I really do think that's the case. Then I believe that the most important book that is written so far in the 21st century is the book that I'm talking about today, and that's Lost Connections by Johann Hari. I believe that when all is said and done, in 100 years' time, when I'm well past and everybody that grew up around me is probably it's their children and grandchildren's children that are reading all these books. I believe that How to Win Friends and Influence People will stand the test of time, and Lost Connections will also stand the test of time and will be looked upon as the most important book written in the 21st century. Now, I hope that that's kind of not the case, because if that's not the case, then maybe the rest of the 21st century, from this point onwards and into the 2020s and 2030s and 2040s, this mental health epidemic, mental health crisis, isn't as prevalent as it is right now. If that's the case, then Lost Connections might not end up being that important of a book. But for me, for this particular period in time that we're in right now, I believe it's the most important book written. I read a lot, I really do, especially in the self-development realm and new age philosophy or whatever it is. I read a shitload. And I'm sure there are lots of other fantastic books out there that are of similar vein and that people could, hold a candle up and say, this is the most important book written, and that's fine. But for me, Lost Connections is that book. So anyway, Johann Hari is an English gentleman who grew up basically a typical English childhood, and he went through his own trials and tribulations with his mental health, getting to the point where I haven't read the book in a little while, so I don't want to go too far into paraphrasing Johann's life, but getting to the point where he was suicidal and he wasn't happy with his life at all, and so on and so forth, and then trying to pull his way back out from that, and basically it's the story of the things that he learned, and his thoughts after dedicating, as a journalist, after dedicating much of his life to figuring out what's going on with this mental health epidemic. He formulated his thoughts and he broke them down into 7 lost connections, so to speak. So if you think of 7 lost connections that are the reasons that we are basically, that there's so much unhappiness and there's a lack of wellness across the world, really, across the Western world anyway. His lost connections, I'll read them just quickly. So his lost connections are a lost connection and disconnection from meaningful work, disconnection from people. So the disconnections. Disconnection from meaningful work, disconnection from people, disconnection from meaningful values, disconnection from childhood trauma, disconnection from status and respect, disconnection from a natural world, and disconnection from a hopeful and secure future. So, as I said, in the last episode that I recorded regarding this book, I talked really negatively about how silly we are, and how the society that we've found ourselves in basically reflects those lost or those disconnections, I should say. So, what I'm going to do though is I'm going to try and put a spin on how we can build those connections back. So, how we can take those 7 disconnections that are currently afflicting us all as a society, and how can we build them back up? How can we get back on a path that's going to lead us into the next century for our children's children and so forth? How can we get back onto an even keel where we're not worrying about, at the moment, right now at this moment, in the last 18 months, I've got 5 best friends. In the last 18 months, 3 of them we've had on suicide watch. One of them is currently suicidal right now. One of my best friends. One of my other best friends 12 months ago was suicidal. And one of my other best friends was not suicidal, but we were worried. We were talking as friends amongst ourselves, communicating back and forth, making sure we were there for him. We were worried that something might happen. So that's fucked up. I've got to, and then there's me. I've never been suicidal, but fuck me, I've been down in the dumps from time to time, like fucking anxiety and sadness, and just, I, for some reason, don't think that, I can't get my head around suicide myself. Like I can't think of, I get lonely as fuck, sad as fuck, anxious as all hell, but I can't really figure out for myself how it would come to suicide, and that's just me, and that's lucky. I'm happy for that. And then I've got another friend, Corey, who he goes through a bunch of stuff, but he said to me, we were having beers the other day, and he said to me that he knows that he's blessed and he's lucky because he wakes up every morning, and no matter what's going on, the days past, the weeks past, the months past, what's going on in his life, he wakes up every morning with a smile on his face. So he's lucky. So he's one of the lucky ones, and that's fucking unreal. We need more people to feel like that, and I am forever working myself to try and get back to that point, and I want my friends to be back at that point, and I want everyone around the world to be back at that point. It's crazy. It's crazy what's going on. We only get one crack at this thing, and for us to be riddled with problems in our own head for the time that we are here, it's not fair. So anyway, So what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about those 7 disconnections, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on them. So disconnection number 1 from Johann Hari was a disconnection from meaningful work. So this is tough. This is tough because a lot of us don't work for ourselves. I understand that. And a lot of us haven't studied X, Y, and Z at university. I certainly haven't. I do work for myself, but I haven't studied. So apart from working for myself, I'm limited in what career paths I can take. But at the end of the day, if we can be really happy with what we're doing on the day-to-day, if we're spending 40, 50 hours a day, if we're spending 40, 50 hours a week, that's right. We're spending 40, 50 hours a week doing something, realistically, we want it to be doing something that is going to give us, happiness and joy and bring value to the world. So, but the thing is, it's not really up to the employee. It's not up to the everyman. Obviously, it's very important to the everyman, but the everyman doesn't really, always get to pick and choose what they want to do with their life. So I remember, for example, the other day, I was just helping my buddy. He was going away, so I was helping him with a day of construction work because he was going over to Vietnam, one of my best mates. Oh, this is our other best mate. Yeah, actually, one of my other best mates, sorry. I forgot to mention this guy. He was suicidal as well. Maybe I got 6 best mates. No, 5 best mates plus me. That's right, 6. Fucking crazy. But anyway, so I was down on this job site with my brother. We went down to help my mate out, and my mate wasn't there. It was just me and Jack, my brother. And I remember I remember seeing this garbage disposal man, garbage man, driving this big garbage truck down this particular road, and then to turn left to get the bins on the down this little side alley, he had to turn left in this big truck, and there was a car obscuring his right to turn. And I remember just sitting there, and I'm like, okay, cool. That guy looks like he's got his work cut out for him. And he put his feet on the brakes. The truck came to a stop, and then he just yelled out, "Fuck!" And I was just like, oh, shit, that dude's not having it. Sun was out, beautiful day, 23 degrees in Melbourne, not a cloud in the sky, not a drop of wind, fucking just like everything that could be going good was going good that day. And then this guy, he was just having a shit one. He was just having a real shit one. And the thing is, we need garbage men. We need people in these roles and so forth. And maybe one day that will change with artificial intelligence. But the point I'm trying to make is, it's hard for the everyman to dictate creating meaningful work for himself. So my fix for that is business and industry, and leaders in business and industry have to find a way to create meaningful work for their employees and for the world. So a lot of the time, I think the most powerful people in the world right now are not governments. The most powerful people in the world are Facebook, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and so on and so on. So I feel like it's up to business and industry leaders, and small business too, to be a driver and a catalyst for change. Really, it shouldn't be up to the everyman. Our voices need to be heard, the everyman, for sure, 100%. But businesses need to give back, Businesses need to... There's enough ideas in the world, that, businesses should be looking at ways that we can, bolster the economy by creating impactful commerce. So, and if that's not the case, if you're selling, protein shakers online, and you're, involved in the influencer community and all this stuff that's, adding fuel to the fire of this mental health epidemic, then find a way to give back. I feel really terrible because Athena, we really help people in underprivileged countries find work that they wouldn't ordinarily be able to find, and I feel really good about that. We help small business by giving them a cost-effective solution to get time back in their life or bring money into the business. But there's also a lot of things that we've dropped the ball on, and my laser focus as CEO of Athena is to make sure that we get to a position where we're comfortable and that we don't have to worry about the company's future. And we're in a great position. We're growing really, really fast. Got a great customer, great client base, really good reviews and whatever, and we'll be a behemoth of a company. So it's all good. However, I need to do more on my end to give back. So there's basically, I think, led by companies such as Patagonia, there's a movement now where all commerce worldwide should really be finding a way to give back by a way of social impact. So whether that's actually what your product and offering is, giving back to, help people in need, or to fund something to do with, obviously, nature and what we're doing to the planet, or whatever it is, giving some sort of a proceed, giving some sort of value back to whatever your social impact wants to be. So businesses have the ability to take what they do and align with their values an impact that they can give back to. And I think that's where it's going to really start is businesses need to be that catalyst for change, because businesses can not only make an improvement to an industry or a product or whatever that is, but they can also build a community, and then they can also help to give back through that community, and also that will positively affect in a massive way the people that are working for them and their day-to-day wellness around, do I want to actually roll into work? Do I want to get up and do I want to, get on the public transport and spend an hour to get into the city and sit at a desk for 10 hours? Well, maybe if I knew that my work really heavily impacted something that I was passionate about and something that really helped the world become a better place, then yeah, maybe it would create more meaningful work and a more meaningful 9 to 5 for most people. So by all means, let's go and create the world that we want to live in. Let's go and be entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs really are the ones that build the planet and build the future, build our culture and so forth. And let's continue to do that, obviously, but not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Not everyone's interested in being an entrepreneur. So those that are entrepreneurs, businesses from big to small, small to medium businesses to the biggest conglomerates on the planet, they need to be thinking of ways that they can give back, because that's where it's going to start. So that's one. Disconnection from meaningful work, and a reconnection is by helping people. Serotonin is, dopamine is pleasure. Serotonin that's what makes you feel happy, and that's really around giving back and helping people. So let's create more of that so that everybody that does business and everybody that has anything to do with business, which is everyone, can feel good about themselves. So that's a reconnection to meaningful work. Just going to have a pause because I've just got to quickly go to the bathroom. Ooh, back in a tick. Oh. All right, and I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. So, second in Johann Hari's lost connections, and out of his seven disconnections, is disconnection from people. So, this is an easy one. So, back in the day, think of the way that we're built. Think of the way, if you can think of evolution. So evolution is basically an adaptation to the world around you. So how can I survive? How can my DNA pass forward through the ages? And it's because you're adapting to the surroundings around you. So, but evolution can't be fast-tracked as quickly as we're trying to fast-track it. So think of the agricultural revolution, and think of the fact that was only agricultural revolution was 12,000 years ago, I believe. Interesting to see if interesting. I would love to have a fact checker on this podcast, because so much of the shit that I say definitely is bullshit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to Google. I'm actually pretty certain about this. When was the agricultural revolution? Agricultural revolution. That didn't help me. It says that it was in the 18th and 19th centuries in Europe. Well, fuck me. Okay, here we go. This one backs me up. Definition of the first agricultural revolution. The first agricultural revolution, also known as the Neolithic Revolution, is the transformation of human societies from hunting and gathering to farming. Here we go. This transition occurred worldwide between 10,000 BC, that's right, 12,000 years ago, thank you very much, and 2000 BC, with the earliest known developments taking place in the Middle East. Thank you very much. So, what I'm talking about here, though, is, guys, if you think of us 12,000 years ago, that's not very long ago. That's only, let's say, 100 generations. Far out. 50 generations? Let's have a look at that too. 50 times 25. Yeah, 50 generations. 50 generations ago. So obviously it wasn't yesterday, but obviously also we've been the same anatomically correct human being for hundreds of thousands of years. And before that, millions of years in our evolutionary path from, Homo erectus to where we are now. So we don't really have that much time to evolve, but what we've been forced to do is we've been forced to evolve and put ourselves into this new system where we we sit in public transport for very long periods of time, for a couple of hours every day, or transport, that is car or public transport, a couple of hours every day. We go and we sit in an office cubicle, most of us, a lot of us, work sedentary, solitary jobs. And then we come home and we live in one-bedroom apartments or, two-bedroom apartments, or we live with a family, and that's cool. It's not all negative, but think of that in comparison to roaming around the wilderness, hunting, and picking up eating crickets and berries and trying to forage and whatever it is, but the whole time surrounded by your tribe, your friends, your family, so on and so forth. Another book that accompanies Lost Connections really well is a book called Tribe. Just because I mentioned it, I thought I'd make note of that book for another recommendation that I always talk about this on this podcast. But so we really are tribal. The reason that we feel really, really good and serotonin is released when we're around people is because we're built that way. We've been that way forever. That's what makes us happy, connection with human beings. And, we've lost a little bit of that along the way. So this is why I think that I've mentioned this so many times again on this show. Like one of the things that I think of that is the most important this day and age is the third place. So you have your home and you have your work and then you have your third place. So your community. Hopefully your community can be also at your work, and you can have a really vibing, friendship and community base there as well, which is really beneficial. But not everybody does. So making sure you have that community, I really think that's key. I'm not going to harp on about the concept of a third place, but what I'm going to talk about also is we all live very, very busy lives, So I live in the city. Most of my friends work, I would say, on an average of 45 to 50 hours a week. So that's 10 hours a day. You take in public transport, so on and so forth. You've really got fuck all time to spend with the people that you love, the people that are, your buddies, your friends, the people that are going to lighten your mood just by getting together and talking some shit, going for a walk, having a beer, whatever that is. You want to be around those people, and I'm absolutely so badly guilty of this, is not seeing my friends enough. And also, I have a bit of, I have some personal issues, especially the last few months of getting a little bit of anxiety in the lead up to going to events, and not actually being able to push myself through the door to go and see my friends that I so badly do want to go and see, because I know they'll make me feel better. But that's a whole nother topic in itself. But so with this busy day and age that we live in, and these lives that, they're surrounded by, meetings and work and priorities and transport and so on and so forth, you have to find time for your friends. So it's just like when they talk about finding time to go to the gym, you have to schedule that shit in. And if you don't have the time in your schedule, then make the time. So here's another thing I need to Google. So I believe it's called Pareto's Law. So let me just have a look at this, because again, I wish I had a fact checker. I wish I had Jamie like Joe Rogan does. But Pareto's Law, Pareto's principle, oh damn it, that's the 80-20 principle. Fuck. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is basically it's not Pareto's Law. Damn it. There's a law that dictates, obviously, that we live within our means. So that is talking financially in a lot of certain cases. So I've lost all my credibility now. I'm actually stuttering and I'm. If you can't see me on the video, I'm actually bright red in the face right now. No, but in all seriousness, there's a principle of living within your means, and living within your means goes for money. So if we have $100,000 coming into our bank account every week, we'll live within our means, and we'll most likely spend, the majority of that $100,000. If we have a lot less money coming in, we'll live within those means, and it basically it goes on the put it this way. I'm going to stop going around the circles, and I'm just going to try and make my point. It's very easy to lose track of time and to be busy and feel busy and never be able to schedule that time in to see your friends and your family and your loved ones or whatever. But you've got to schedule it in. So if you say to yourself, right, I know that every week I need to have lunch with one of my buddies from, Monday to Friday, then I know that I've got to have lunch with one of my buddies from Monday to Friday. If you're somebody that works really long hours, really, really hard, really pushes himself to the brink, then, make sure that you're reconnecting with your oldest and best and closest friends. Everyone's busy, but try and get every 8 weeks that you go and see your best friend. If they're, an hour away, 2 hours away, whatever it is, go and see them. Spend time with them. And the key is to just make the time, because the rest of your life is not going to fall down around you. So if, for example, you block out, let's say you schedule your weeks in and you're very good with scheduling, and you block out that on Wednesday of every week you're going to have lunch with somebody that you love. Then, you've lost an hour for that week, and you're going to feel busy and you're going to feel rushed, but you're actually not going to, because you're going to build the rest of your week around the fact that that's a priority. That's what you need to do. It's just like gym. People build in gym. Okay, I don't have time to go to the gym. No, I'm going to make time. I'm going to build it into my schedule. I'm going to make sure that, that 2 hours of, Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday is set and allocated to me going and getting my endorphins firing and going out and making myself feel better. And it needs to be the same with people. So I really think that can be changed. We can really live a more connected life, and spend time with the people that we love around us. We got to really work for it. Another interesting thing is, so WeWork, the co-working company, they, I believe, started a company called We Live, and not too much has been released in the way of details, but I believe it to be shared living communities. So what that would look like is, I think, like a dormitory style kind of, not dorm as in hostel dorm, but like a college dormitory style scenario where you have your own room and you have a bathroom and a little kitchenette and so forth, but then you have a communal kitchen, communal lounge, community events, so on and so forth. And if it's anything like what they do with co-working spaces for business, then it's going to be a revolution that will truly, truly, truly change the world. And I can't fucking wait to see. I really can't wait to see. Because imagine coming home, imagine you go to work and you work okay, cool. So you leave the house at 7 a.m. and you go on transport for an hour and a half, and then you get in by 8:30, you work till 5:30, and you get home by 7 p.m. This is a pretty standard scenario. So, and then you go back to your 1-bedroom apartment or 2-bedroom apartment, and you cook dinner and you go to bed. Imagine coming home and walking out into a kitchen filled with like 10 people that you know and love and you trust. They're your community, your tribe, your buddies, your people that you can rely on. And then, having social events that are scheduled into these living environments. I believe it's the future. I really do. And I've often thought about this, why is it that at the moment, like, if you were to say, oh yeah, cool, I live in a commune, or I live in a shared living environment with my brother and his family, my best friend and his family, and we all have a farm. We have 3 houses on the farm. We have like communal. That's kind of like when people think of that right now, they think of it as, oh, these guys are hippies. These guys are weirdos. And it shouldn't be the way. That's how we're supposed to be. And I believe that's where we will go in the future. Or I don't believe it's where we will go, but I'm very excited to see what happens with We Live, because I feel like that's what they're going to be producing with We Live. And if that's the case, then WeWork have the potential to truly, truly change the world and the way that we live our lives. And that is absolutely wild. So stand by for that. So next is disconnection from meaningful values. So how do we reconnect with meaningful values? So, I don't have too many fixes for this one, guys. But, the thing that we have to do most, I believe, is try not to believe in, to buy into the celebrity. I made a note in my phone when I was listening to Lost Connections, and I don't know whether this was something that Johann said. I guess it would have been, or something that I thought of, and I'm just stealing his quote if that's the case, but who knows. But there was a note in my phone that we are now the marketing director of our own lives. So, through Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever, we have this persona. The word personal brand disgusts me. It absolutely disgusts me. And the reason for that is, I understand it if it's the fact that you're a Tony Robbins figure and you sell whatever it is that you sell, but you are your own, you are your own product and you are your own company and so forth. I got a friend, Mac Rundle. If he was, if his personal brand and his brand and what he does is somewhat him, I get that. Excuse me. Need water. I get that. But this whole personal brand for just personal brand's sake, for influencers, for, F-grade celebrities, for just, everyone's general, just for people in general. The whole concept it freaks me out. And I often see people on their Instagram stories looking down the camera of the Instagram story, just dictating their day every 30 minutes, telling people what they're doing. And I don't see the value in it. I really don't see the value in it. And I feel like it's part of the problem in that we are basically, our egos have kind of spiraled out of control to the point where I have an ego. I like to look good, or try to look good. I look like, obviously I've, Face for Radio 101. That's me, this bloke right here. But I like to look good. I like to feel like my voice is heard. I like to feel like a leader. I want to be the center of attention. I have an ego. I have a massive ego, and I don't consciously, try to feed my ego, but I know that it's there, and it plays, tricks on me a lot. But I think this whole influencer economy that we're living in, this whole influencer movement, this whole influencer day and age, it's a real problem that we're facing. And, I'm not saying that influencers are bad. I have friends that are influencers that have, hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and so forth. And they're just awesome people. Some of the best people you'll know. Dead set, some of the best people you know. 3 people that come to mind are, and who are my closest, true influencer friends are Dave Driscoll, Jackie Perez, and Khan Porter. Khan I'm, probably not as close with as I am the other two, but Dave I was particularly close with for years as one of my best buddies. And they are, I always hesitate to use this term, but they are salt of the earth, so to speak. So I really do believe that, and they're not out to do things that, aren't anything but positive for the world, but, they're the best case scenario with influencers. But if you're a kid, and even though what Jackie, Dave, Khan put out, it's all positive, it's all good stuff. If you're a kid and you grew up and you didn't come from a good household and you didn't have good genetics, I'm talking looks-wise, you're a bit beat up, you're not a good-looking rooster. You don't have money, you're not super well educated. You didn't get, for lack of a better term, kissed on the dick. I don't know where I heard that term, but can't believe I just used it on the podcast. But if you didn't get the run of it out of the womb, if you weren't one of the lucky ones, and you're looking at social media and you're following even the best of the best, my friends Dave, Jackie, Khan, and so forth, you're probably going to look at their life and you're going to go, oh man, my life sucks. You're going to, our days are filled with, oh man, my life sucks. So I don't know what we can do to not buy into that, to not buy into the celebrity. I think one good thing which is has happened, which is, there's all these apps coming out now that are apps that'll help you stay off Instagram, apps that'll help you stay off YouTube or whatever it is. These apps are super beneficial and they really work. So for example, I used to always delete Instagram for the longest time. I'd try and stay off it for as long as I can, but I'm trying to toe the line of using it for commerce, to build the business and to try and, do good where I can or whatever, and without, getting myself heavily involved in it day to day, but also, trying to reply to people and be, to build that community and be a good bloke to the people that do follow me. And it's a tough gig. So what I do is I've got my Instagram, my phone set to 30 minutes a day. So I can not go on Instagram for any more than 30 minutes a day, and then it's shut off, and I'm locked out and I don't have the passcode. So actually, I lie right now, I do have the passcode. But the idea is that I don't have the passcode. I've always given it to my housemates. Hey, can you set my code on my phone? And go from there. So even though I'm still getting that, influencer, I'm still getting influenced, I'm able to limit it, and the other thing is, these junk values or whatever, they're related to, commerce as well. So just try and, I think it's really important, and I don't think we're taught in schools, and nobody really understands that money doesn't buy you happiness. Money just is, a way that we put a roof over our head and put food in our bellies, and we can do some nice things with it and so on and so forth. But there's a really interesting note that was in the book in Lost Connections that Sao Paulo had banned outdoor advertisement. So, billboards of like, buy this, buy that, bus shelters, buy this, buy that, trams going buy this, buy that, plastered all over the place. Like, basically, when you walk down the street, most of what you see is, hey, go work harder to get more money so you can buy this shit that we're trying to sell you. And that's not very good. So I think the thing that we need to remember is we need to remember that money doesn't do fuck all for you. As long as you've got a roof over your head and as long as you've got food in your belly and you're surrounded by people that you love, then you're sweet. That's all you need. So I think we just have to make more of a conscious effort to not buy into the celebrity, to not be the PR people of our own lives, to just try and live in the real world and try and switch off and disconnect, and also try not to buy into consumerism and so forth. And it's all more difficult. It's all more difficult. Wait, it's all harder said than done, because everybody, all the money is going against us in that regard. But that's what we need to do. The next point that Johann addresses in his book is he addresses childhood trauma. And to be perfectly honest, guys, I don't have much for that. I don't have a reconnection for childhood trauma. I haven't had much childhood trauma. I mean, I did really kind of dislike my dad growing up for a little while because of the fights he used to have with mum, and I used to think that he used to drink too much and so on and so forth. But we have a great relationship now. But maybe I could have spoken more to a psychologist and got my feelings off my chest, and maybe I was harboring for a period there I was for sure harboring some resentment. But as I said, excuse me, water break. As I said, it's probably not something that I know too much about, and that I probably shouldn't talk at length about childhood trauma, because it's really not my ballpark. So I'm just going to take one more quick break because someone's at the door here. Give me one moment, listeners. All right, and we're back. So moving on. So the next lost connection that Johann points out in his book is status and respect. So again, this is really comes back to the same stuff about values, I believe. So, and I think that we're in a good position now where self-development and so forth is really at the forefront. It's really growing. I'm not super into life coaches and self-development and spiritual healing and fucking whatever, but I do meditate. I think meditation really grounds you. Meditation is something that basically does quell the ego. It's been shown to have positive effects on the part of the brain that is where basically anxiety and depression live, and where the ego, where we tell ourselves our self-biographical tales. Meditation helps with that. So I think making sure that you're grounded, and that you're putting in work to be a happy person, that's going to give you that level of self-respect and status. And stop you from worrying about status. More to the point. So that's a huge one. And then sixth on the list of disconnections is a disconnection from the natural world. So in this day and age, as I said, we all live in cities, and people are starting to get out of the city, which is really great because there's all this remote work phenomenon. So, and I'm not talking about what we do at Athena, where we deal with people from abroad. We help people in underprivileged countries. We have staff in the Philippines and Venezuela and Argentina and so forth. I'm talking about people in Melbourne working for a Melbourne-based company, but that are working from home. Now, that's really great because it's allowing people to spread out of the cities. Cities were the melting pots where people could get together and do work. And now people can come in to have those meetings and so forth, but they can also work from home, which means that people are spreading out. We're getting out of this concrete jungle, and we're getting back to, rural areas and places that are more kind of community driven, and there's more fresh air and clear skies at night and so on and so forth. So I think a big thing for me around the disconnection from the natural world is, again, planning in your holidays, planning in, adventures where you're going to nature and you'll get away for a day and so on and so forth. And we're all busy, and, we're all struggling for time and so on and so forth. But I'm going to use an analogy that my business partner, Drew, actually once gave me. So he used to be a mentor of mine back when I was doing Adventure. It was my main business. So basically, Drew talked about the fact that he drew this out in front of us. He drew a vase, and he said, look, I want you guys to plan your holidays, and I want, okay, cool. It was all about time management. If you have, this is your vase, this is your time that you have in your life. He goes, what I'm going to do is, these are large chunks of time, and we're going to call them rocks, and we're going to put them inside of the vase. So he drew all these rocks, and he put them inside of the vase effectively. So the vase is basically filled with all these, large rocks, and he said, now how much time do we have left? And, first person answered, well, none, the vase is full. And Drew said, well, not entirely true. How about we grab some pebbles here, and we take those pebbles and we place them in around the rocks, so we can fit a little bit more in. No worries. Okay, cool. Now we've fit some more into our time. And he said, now how much time do we have? And people were like, well, we don't have any time. You can see that, we're run out. And Drew said, well, what about if we put some sand in here? And we fill all the space around the rocks and all around the pebbles, and we sprinkle some more time in here. We fill those gaps here and there, and we sprinkle. And okay, cool. Now we have, what do we have? We have a full vase. And people were like, yeah, we got a full vase. And Drew said, well, what if I pour this 3 liters of water in this vase? And people were like, far out. So the whole analogy is around managing your time and actually being ruthless with what you do for yourself inside of that time. So plan your holidays. Set out and go, all right, cool. This 3-month period, we don't have time to go away, but what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to do a 2-night stay out in the national park, insert wherever you are, wherever you live. I'm going to go out and we're going to get into the wilderness. We're going to go out and get into nature. We live this lifestyle where, we sit in front of the TVs and screens and so forth, but it's so easy to just, if you have an animal, it's the best because you're forced to go for a walk. Well, I am. I'm forced to go for a walk for an hour and a half a day with Ziggy. And it's my favorite part of the day. But you've got to plan those big getaways and those micro getaways around your already busy schedule. And it can be done. And we need to get back to nature. So, taking off your shoes and grounding yourself and walking along the beach in the morning, getting away and scheduling in that overnight, getaway to wherever it is, your favourite holiday destination, and just getting away from the hustle and bustle. It's absolutely key. So that's really an easy fix. It's not a super easy fix, but we can all do better there, I think. And it's a huge, if you get the sun on your back and fresh air in those nostrils, and you're out hiking and getting a sweat on, and there's absolutely nothing better. So that's an easy one. All right. And lastly, on Johann Hari's 7 disconnections is disconnection from a hopeful and secure future. So what that means is, guys, it's basically, obviously in today's society, we work really, really hard and really, really long hours to just get by. And I don't understand the economics of how the world works well enough to be able to tell you how we can change that as individuals and as business owners and so forth. But what I will say is I believe that'll all change. So what I believe that universal basic income is on its way. So people that have listened to this show a lot would have heard it spoken about, by Steve Sammartino, the futurist, and by myself and Tommy, and I think maybe by who else have we spoken about it? Don't know, but we've spoken about it a lot. And universal basic income is basically a stipend that is kind of like social security or the dole here in Australia, benefits, but it just goes out to everyone. And I mean, isn't that pretty ideal? So the thing with UBI, universal basic income, is people worry that it'll be taken advantage of, and if people have nothing to strive for and they don't have to go to work, they'll just be, bums and they'll be slack with no drive and no nothing to really give back to society. And the thing is, robots and artificial intelligence and automation, it's going to take over a lot of our jobs. So say, for example, we lose 50% of our jobs, then there's going to be relatively the same amount of money in the economy, and there's going to be less hours worked by human beings. So surely that's a good scenario where we can say, all right, cool, companies and so forth are taxed heavily on automation or just in general, and a universal basic income, so enough for a roof over your head and for food on your plate, goes to everybody in all countries, really, and we just work less. So if there's the same amount of money in the economy but less jobs, then instead of having 50% of people that are displaced and 50% of people that are unemployed, 100% of people work, and they work for 20 hours a week. Mate, sign me up any day of the week. So that's my utopian universal basic income scenario, and I don't see why it can't happen. I mean, one reason why it might not is because I know absolutely zero about economics, and I don't know if artificial intelligence will fully happen and if our jobs will get taken. Look, there's a lot of holes in my theory, but there's also a lot of hope in that theory. I truly believe that. We're smart enough to send people to the bloody Mars, nearly, but we're all still working that much. So I think universal basic income will really help. It's been trialled in a province in Canada about 20 years ago, and everything to do with the biomarkers of a healthy society went in the right direction. So, divorces went down, rate of perceived happiness went up, general wellness went up, mental health care plans went down. Everything just, if you don't have to struggle, if you don't have to stress, if you don't have to work a shit job for crap pay for someone you don't like and to make ends meet, then you'll be way happier. And it's like mini communism in a way, it really is. And it's a way that we can keep the society that we're in and look after people more. And I think it's a real option. And I think it's something that the governments are already preparing for, is universal basic income. So it's what's being thought about. and we just need to make sure that greed doesn't take over and it doesn't fuck us, and the rich don't get richer from all automation and artificial intelligence and so forth, and that we actually give back to the everyman and raise people's quality of life, because that's what we have the ability to do in the future, in the near, not too distant future, is we have the ability to do good for large portions of people in this artificial intelligence era, automation era. So why wouldn't we do it? Why wouldn't we do it? Anyway, if you've been watching this on the YouTubes, you would have noticed that the camera broke about 7 times. It's the first time in this new studio. The camera broke down about 7 times, our main camera. And we had to stop and restart. And if you're listening on audio, hopefully you didn't notice. But anyway, that's pretty much it from me for this show today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's any comments, any questions, you can always email me at doc@athena.co. That's ATHYNA.co. Leave comments on the YouTubes. Shout us out on the Instagrams. I will love to hear the feedback on this episode. And as always, this has been Philosophy Through the Eyes of an Idiot. That idiot is me, and that's a wrap.